All right. Welcome to the Inner Sanctum. What are we talking about this week, Andrew?
Today, we're taking a trip back to June 27th in the year 2000. We're going to be looking at the bootleg from East Rutherford, New Jersey at the wonderful and no longer used Meadowlands Arena. And this is the first show where I could say I was there. So before we started the show today, I pulled out my shirt, my event shirt from the gig. So there you go. Just something cool to add. I know we have some people that are now listening on Spotify. Someone had mentioned that they wanted to do that. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, I'm sorry you couldn't see me hold up my shirt. But before we get started on diving into the show, I just want to thank everyone for all the views, all the engagement, all the comments, all the corrections, all that good stuff. You guys are just really making the show better. You know, that's the weird thing about history is it's not like an end game thing. We're always finding out new things, and it's fun. It's the purpose behind this show is to get you all rewatching these old bootlegs and talking about Kiss again.
Shit, it's getting me rewatching them, and that's a good thing.
Or watching them for the first time.
In some cases, it is. I want to ask you just something because you were there.
Yeah.
Did you make any of the cutscenes to the audience? I know you don't have breath.
No. Well, that's the common misconception is that everything in this show is from the 27th and then the 28th of June. But I believe a lot of the inserts are Atlanta. And then there are also other inserts from other shows that are kind of just pasted in there. But no, the unfortunate part is I was sitting too far away to be in the audience shots of this show. So yeah, I was sitting all the way in the back of the arena. But you know what? It didn't matter. 15-year-old Andrew was seeing the original 4 Kiss for the very last time. So nope,
I'm disappointed because I saw a 15-year-old kid banging his head. I'm like, that looks a little bit like Andrew. Is it Andrew?
No, that would have been cool.
No.
That would have been cool if we ever cover this one. If we ever covered the Rock the Nation live DVD, that one I'm on because I knew both shows were being shot, and I was in, I think the 5th row one of the nights, and then I think like the 4th row the other night. But yeah, so I'm on both. I'm on the Rock the Nation DVD, but I wasn't on this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, so a very, very cool show to get to recap. Why are we visiting this one? Is it strictly because it is the first one that you have attended, or is it an opportunity for us to wax lyrical about a show that's important to you personally?
No. Well, this wouldn't be the most important show for me in particular. I just think there's a lot of history that goes along with this show. This show was part of the main content on Kissology Volume 3. And as we'll discuss throughout the episode, there were a lot of different versions of this show that were available either in bootleg trading circles or, officially released. Some people may or may not know that this show ended up being The Last Kiss, which was the pay-per-view that aired on October 7th, 2000. And it was also aired in Japan. And there's a lot of history that goes along with this show. And what interests me most about shows that we picked for this program is what's the history around there? How many different versions are there? What version did you see? Just things like that. So knowing that there was so much to talk about with this show, that's why we picked it. And it just so happens that I was there.
Yeah, and you know what? It's meaningful to me as well. I think I saw 3 shows on the farewell tour,
Mm-hmm.
and because it is a visual document of that,
Mm-hmm.
it means a little bit more to me, because I have similar memories of that stage and that set and everything. The audience was basically the same sort of audience everywhere you went. It was, it was a fun time to be a Kiss fan in 2000. And
Yeah, it really
even
was.
more funnily, I actually have the Last Kiss poster still up on my wall.
Me too.
And I had a Last Kiss promo t-shirt as well.
Let's check the t-shirt box.
Yeah, I don't have mine anymore. I think I probably sold it on along with the Alive 4 promo
You know
shirt.
what's really funny? It's the very last t-shirt in this box.
It's always going to be that way. It's never going to be the first one ready to go. It's got to dig. There we go.
Yeah.
And the back says "Last Kiss."
No, it says,
That's not the Last Kiss promo T-shirt then.
well, it's the Last Kiss artwork. It just says Farewell Shore, 1973 to 2000. That's the artwork that
I'll have to see. Yeah, I'll have to see if I could dig up a picture of the promo pay-per-view one to punch in here, or maybe I'm misremembering it as well. I mean, it is a long time,
it is a
and I
long
don't
time
wear
ago.
Kiss T-shirts very often now, so it could well be. All right, get us back into the topic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this show is interesting to me. You know, the farewell tour at the time was interesting to all of us because I think at the time all of us believed that this was actually the end of Kiss, and this was going to be, you know, the last time we are not only going to see those four guys, it was the last time that we are going to see our favorite band. I don't think anybody knew that the band still had 23 years left in them touring when these shows were happening. I think we actually thought that this was the end. VH1 put together a really good program called Fan Clubs. I think it actually aired after the farewell tour had ended. But just talking to the fans during that show, it was clear that we were celebrating the history one last time, and it was sort of bittersweet because it was starting the same way that it ended. It was starting with Paul Gene, Ace, and Peter, and it was ending with Paul Gene, Ace, and Peter. And the waters hadn't been muddied yet. Um, and
Yeah,
also, furthermore, anytime that Kiss was getting ready to tour in the reunion era, the reunion tour, Psycho Circus, and the farewell tour, there was always rumors about a concert that was going to be aired on TV. The rumors dated all the way back to the summer of '96, where there was a rumor that they were going to air a concert during '70s Week in the summer of '96 on VH1. It never took place, but there were always rumors that the concert was going to be aired. There were rumors circulating that the entire Dodger Stadium 1998 concert was going to be aired. So there just never was a proper concert that was aired with this lineup. Well, I know it's the original lineup, but this era of the band. So I think once we got official word, there were rumors that were circulating right when the show happened in June of 2000, but the official word didn't come until September of 2000 that this pay-per-view was actually official and it was going to happen and how it was going to be distributed to the fan base. So do you remember hearing about it when it was finally official and going to happen?
it's so muddled now what I remember and what I don't. You know, I was so busy with the album Focus back in 2000
Mhm.
and also working on the tour book, the touring book, which, later became the concert history stuff that I do.
Mhm.
So it was a very muddled time. It was obviously an interesting time, but I don't remember, the details anymore. I mean, I'd be like Gene or Paul doing an interview trying to be specific about something that I was just busy living as a Kiss fan. I wasn't taking notes about what they were doing then. I was still, very much researching the past, very much the same as today. So I remember the excitement building that there was going to be a pay-per-view. And obviously, since I have a promo poster, it obviously resonated with me at the time because that's been up on my wall for decades, literally. I remember the excitement online building, the promotional clips that were being teased
Mhm.
in advance of it. That was a very fun thing that you were getting to see clips online. Plus, it was all a new experience online and online video and online promotion. And it was a very different vibe because it was the originals. And as you said earlier, it really did feel like it was going to be the end of Kiss.
Yeah.
And we have the same conversations in fan circles back then that we did obviously after the Madison Square Garden show in 2023.
Mhm.
Is it the end? Isn't it the end? What's going to happen next? What happened to the contract with Polygram from '89, the 7 album deal with solo albums from Gina? So there were a whole lot of unknowns, and we didn't know the internal dynamics of what was going on either. So it was an exciting time still.
Yeah, so I'm just going to read a little bit of the press release that came from knac.com. This was posted September 7th in the year 2000. So it starts out Set, which was Showtime Event Television. Pay-per-view announced today will distribute The Last Kiss, a 90-minute exclusive concert featuring one of the final performances of the legendary rock band Kiss on Saturday, October 7th at 8 p.m. Pacific Eastern Time. The suggested retail price of this musical event is $19.95. The pay-per-view concert will be distributed by DirecTV and EchoStar to subscribers in the DBS universe, while In Demand and TV and Entertainment will distribute the concert to cable affiliate subscribers. VH1 will provide promotional support for the pay-per-view event by running spots for 10 days prior to the event. Extensive Kiss-themed programming during VH1 News and VH1.com support. What I think is interesting about this is, although the concert was filmed between June 27th and June 28th, it actually aired on the last date of the U.S. farewell tour, which was October 7th. So I do remember a little bit of confusion going on at that time, that people are like, oh, they're airing the concert that happened that night where it was the last show. No. The concert was from New Jersey. And then obviously when you watch the actual bootleg, Paul is New Jersey, it goes through all the nonsense that he was doing. There's so much yodeling going on during this time because Paul had just done the Phantom the year before and his voice was top notch. So there was a lot of yodeling going on in between these songs. So, but it was it was an exciting time because at the time Alive 4 was on hold. And I remember one of the original selling points of Alive 4 coming out is that it was going to be a pay-per-view, which ended up not happening. And then, even though it was going to be a pay-per-view, it was going to be a home video after that. And how exciting would it have been to get an official in-concert home video at that time? I mean, as a 15-year-old kid, I was excited to get that because I wanted that. I had the bootlegs, but I wanted something. I wanted to be able to go to Suncoast Video and say, there's the new Kiss concert I wanted to get. You know, even though there were Kiss tapes available, such as Kiss My Ass, Confidential, and all those things at the time, there was never a full Kiss concert available through retail. There just wasn't. The last one that had come out was Animalized Live and Uncensored, and that was out of print probably longer than I've been alive at that point. Well, not really, but almost. Almost. So I just remember the excitement about it. I don't recall seeing any advertisements for it. I can't even tell you if I watched it that night. I may not have. I'm not sure, to be totally honest with you. I might have.
I remember flyers.
I
There was
remember.
definitely advertising for it. There was. I definitely remember flyers. I can't remember if I saw a news magazine ads. And again, it gets fuzzy.
There was a magazine ad that I do recall. It was in one of the farewell tour poster magazines put up by Metal Edge. It was a large fold out poster of that. I think on one side it was a vintage shot, and on the other side it was the Last Kiss. It was the folded version of the promotional poster, which was actually put together by Spiro. He's the one that actually did the artwork for that poster. Took photographs from two different shots to put it into one. So he did that. So I remember that, but for some reason, like I have very vivid memories of watching Kiss Live, the Ultimate Halloween Party at Dodger Stadium '98. I remember watching that on Fox, being disappointed there was only 2 songs. But I don't have any memories of watching this. I know a couple months later, into 2001, VH1 aired a version of this, and that's the only version I don't have in my collection right now. But I must have watched it. I must have watched it. I just can't. I can't recall if I did or if I didn't. I know for sure that it wasn't long after the pay per view aired that I got the full unedited concert on VHS, and perhaps I thought they were the exact same thing, and that may be why I never had that in my collection, which we'll talk about later on. That they're not. But yeah, I can't recall if I did watch this. Did you watch it when it aired in October?
I don't remember now whether I did or didn't. I just know that after the fact, once I found out that there was audio radio shows, there were a couple different versions. There was a single CD radio show that was broadcast,
Mm-hmm.
and a double CD radio show broadcast that I went hard after finding those,
Mm-hmm.
because that was my audio thing back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I was more interested in getting the soundboards, or the radio shows, the pre-FM versions. so that I could enjoy listening to it that way
Mhm.
and cobble it together versus getting a video and having a rip of video quality audio. That was just the aesthetic that I was going for back in the day. So I don't remember when I got it. I know I had a VHS tape of it, and it was of the pay-per-view itself, that I had for a couple of decades. I think I still have it around here somewhere. Um,
I don't ever
so
remember
I, I
having that.
I don't remember. It just wasn't important. You did say something that was very interesting, and it was, I agree. We wanted and craved a memento from the reunion tour, a live document of it, whether it was an album. I remember being so excited when they announced the live four.
Me
I was
too.
like, "Oh, we are going to get a great recording." Man, hindsight is 2020, isn't it? When we can now obviously compare the Millennium Concert with the Last Kiss. But we were excited. We thought it was going to come in relation in conjunction with the opening of the tour, and then it got delayed, and eventually it just got lost in the ether,
Mhm.
understandably now. But it was something that we wanted, and that's why I was excited about a pay-per-view. I remember, being in Scotland. Um, there was some of the reunion stuff on MTV Europe and hearing about it, but I didn't have it. I couldn't see it.
Mhm.
This was the first one that I would have had the opportunity to see. But again, it's 23 years ago. I don't remember what I had
Mhm.
for lunch last week.
Usually I can remember like certain things, but it must have been because the advertisements definitely hammered home that it was 90 minutes. And if you can believe, Kiss was playing almost 2.5 hours on stage on the farewell tour. Granted, probably 27 minutes of that was yodeling every night. I'm not kidding. There was a lot of yodeling.
People,
There
people,
was a
people,
there
let
was
me hear you.
Oh my god, there was a lot of that. So, I really believe that I probably skipped out on the pay-per-view because I had the full show, like, right after it. And I think yeah, here it is. This is my original VHS tape from back then. It's in a pile to get thrown away because I was able to, maybe I won't throw this one away because maybe this one I always kept my Madison Square Garden tape, which I showed on our very first episode. Maybe I'll keep this one too because I was at this show and this, but I had this, and I guess at the time it's super clear when watching the complete show that it's not mint quality. It's not production quality. Definitely from a VHS. But at the time, watching it on my 13-inch standard definition TV, I didn't know the difference. I probably was into this more than I was into the pay-per-view because I knew the pay-per-view was incomplete. And then I know that when the Kissology series started coming out, I was throwing stuff away that I had at the time because I was like, I don't need this. Because the pay-per-view is what's on Kissology. The US pay-per-view is on Kissology. But a couple interesting notes about the show. The show was filmed in high definition. It has never been broadcast anywhere or seen anywhere in high definition. It was also filmed in an anamorphic widescreen. Now, and it was edited by Tommy Thayer on an Avid machine. Avid was a popular video editing program at the time. And Tommy did
Still
interview.
is.
Yeah, Tommy did. Well, I mean, there are other ones that are more popular. Avid was like the gold standard back then. At the time, Premiere and Final Cut really weren't up to snuff to what Avid was then. Avid was the gold standard then. Um, I think all the programs are now the programs basically break down to your preference. But then Avid was ahead of the game. Tommy Thayer stated that the entire thing was edited in widescreen high definition, but for whatever reason, when the initial pay per view aired in October of 2000, it was in full screen. So that's another like crucial blow to Kiss fans, or to understand this visual band had this great show shot, and then it was kind of neutered, so to speak. Um, edited by Tommy Thayer, and Tommy Thayer basically said that he edited it while he was, you know, because he was on the road. He was the road manager at the time, so he was editing it while he was on the road. So, but he said he put together the entire show, um, while he was on there. And it's interesting too because especially, I know when I got this, but there are other versions of the show that are out there where there's backstage footage either before or after the show. What's interesting is that there's pre-show huddles for what I believe is the June 27th show, where Doc is saying, "Guys, pay attention tonight. We don't want to fix everything," meaning that there were going to be overdubs if they were going to be releasing this widely, which I never really minded. I don't want to hear a bum note on a show. Hear I'd rather hear the integrity of the performance intact versus just a sloppy performance, my opinion. But there were always going to be overdubs on this one, um, from the beginning when they were actually performing the show. So
Yeah, I'd rather have something that's enjoyable. And whether it has a couple of minor issues, minimal fixes, but
minimal.
fixes where necessary.
Yeah, I don't want a full studio
Make it.
recreation.
No, no, you want something that's honest to the show and does it justice, but it doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want it to be highly flawed either. You want people to enjoy it. And
Mhm.
I think in terms of his editing, Tommy did a fantastic job.
Tommy did a
Um,
fantastic job on the second coming, and then he did a fantastic job on this too. So
yeah, these are very, or this is very enjoyable, and obviously we have watched a bunch of different versions of this, before doing this episode, and it wasn't painful. It was not an
mm-mm.
exercise that I wasn't looking forward to. Going, oh shit, I got to watch that again. I was actually really up for this, and once I dug out, I started, with my CDs,
Mhm.
just listening to it, and then went into the video. So it was a very fun, recap, because again, it helps that I went to that tour, and enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, I deeply, deeply enjoyed this tour. I deeply enjoyed this time for the band. I have a lot of fond memories on this. So let's just talk about the farewell tour just really, really quickly before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video. The tour did start March 11th in Phoenix, Arizona at the Desert Sky Pavilion. What was very cool about this is VH1 aired a program called Opening Night Live. And this was very, very popular with VH1 in the early 2000s. Other bands were on this show, such as I know there was a Bon Jovi one that was done very, very soon after this. So opening night live, they showed 3 songs. I was like, okay, VH1 showed one more song than fucking Fox. So I was happy about that. But it was live. So I remember taping that the night that it aired. I was super excited to see them descend from the top of the lighting rig, and I was so excited to see the new stage. And I was like, they're gonna open up with Psycho Circus. Why wouldn't they? And I was so excited that they opened up with Detroit Rock City, because I wasn't alive for the '80s tours where they did that. So I was excited that they opened up with Detroit. Obviously, later on down the line, 23 years later, I'm like, God, Detroit again? Anyway, but at the time it was still new. So I was excited that they did that, and I was excited to hear songs from the '80s for the very first time live. Peter and Ace doing "Lick It Up," "Heaven's on Fire," and "I Love It Loud." So it was cool. It was very, very cool to see that. VH1 was the partner on this tour, so I remember logging on to VH1.com to get my tickets. I didn't get them, so I had to scalp them. Luckily, soon after, I was able to scalp them and get tickets to the show. But it was tough to get tickets to this, much more than it was for the Psycho Circus tour and probably the reunion tour as well too. But I do remember having to scalp them. I did. I remember driving down the New Jersey Turnpike again to meet somebody to pick up these damn tickets. But I got them, and then the day of the show when I went down to um, the Meadowlands in East Rutherford, I did stop at Pastor Music on the way, which Kiss fans know the original guitar picks came from Pastor Music. There weren't any there at the time, of course not. But still, just to be in that same building, I think it's closed now. But in June of 2000, it was still open, so I was still able to go to Pastor Music um, at the time. Do you have any woes about getting tickets to the farewell tour? I think your mic is muted.
No, my tickets
There we go.
arrived via Tommy Thayer, who drove around. What was it? I think it was Marysville. It was one of the up north shows. He actually delivered them driving a Mini to the person I was with, and this was my first front row show.
There you go.
So
So cool.
It was very, very cool because, again, if you've ever been fortunate to be front row at a Kiss concert, um, it later became something that was easily obtainable
Hmm.
if you had the money.
That's right.
Whereas there's a little bit more. This was just lucky. I had no idea whether, you know, I just, it was a ticket. I didn't know what it was going to be. I had no expectation. At least I don't remember having any. So again, to see Kiss front row, real Kiss front row, and for it also to have been a fantastic show was a great thing. Then the other shows, Oakland, I just bought locally, um, and got through the mail. It was nothing. Again, Northern California is not quite the same demographic as East Coast. And even back in the early 2000s, to my recollection anyway, it wasn't ever sold out. And I wasn't here for the reunion era, when obviously there was a lot more interest in the group than there was on the farewell. So
I think,
easy peasy when they're comps.
yeah, I wouldn't get those till later. But there was still a lot of attention towards the band on the East Coast. I mean, New Jersey, East Rutherford was the closest the band ever played to Madison Square Garden, New York City on that farewell tour. We talked a little bit about the Jones Beach show, which was in early June, but Jones Beach was in Long Island. So, and if anyone who's ever been to the Jones Beach, I think it's called the Jones Beach Theater in Wantagh.
Yeah,
It's
one to.
pain in the ass to get to. One road in, one road out. I mean, it's beautiful to see a show that there's an awesome Rock the Nation bootleg from that tour where you can kind of see not only where the stage be set, it's right on the water. It's a beautiful place to see a show, but it is a pain in the dick to get there. So much easier to get to the Meadowlands in East Rutherford. Now the Meadowlands isn't even open anymore. The sports complex.
And the bootlegs out of Jones Beach Amphitheater are windy.
That's right. Well, but I mean, for the reason why I mentioned the Rock the Nation tours, you had the instant live, so someone took the instant live and synced it to the video. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, so this was their hometown show, and you could kind of tell there was some extra pomp and circumstance on the show. The inflatables made the second inflatables made appearances at this show inside, so they had two on each side of the stage. So if you're watching that pay-per-view, you see behind the stage the inflatables were there. That wasn't the norm for the farewell tour or any of the tours. Rather, we saw the inflatables at the weenie roast, and then we saw them again a couple of times, but it was always like outside the venue. This one was inside the venue, and correct me if I'm wrong. On the reunion era, I don't know any other shows where these were actually inside the venue by the stage. So it was cool to see them, and it was cool just to be there. So as I mentioned before, I was sitting all the way in the back, straight back, like I was like I don't know, 10 rows away, 10 rows and up from Paul's stage, the secondary stage for Love Gun, and who was sitting in front of me? MTV VJ Jesse Camp was a huge Kiss fan, and he stunk to high heaven. I just remember him. He smelled like wet socks and ham. It was not pleasant. But yeah, that is what it is. But he was the only celebrity I saw there. I know Sebastian Bach was at the show too. He's another huge Kiss fan, another New Jersey resident. But I just remember seeing Jesse Camp, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
So you asked me whether it was hard to get tickets. I just did a fact check.
Yeah.
Mountain View
Oh.
attendance 4,755 in a 20,000 seater.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
no, there were no problems getting tickets in California. Sacramento the following night, yeah, it was the following night, 6,000 and then 18,000. And then I believe I skipped Concord, because I was done by that point. And yeah, no problems getting tickets.
They were just getting murdered out there.
They, yeah, they had to give them away, which I guess is why I got mine.
Yeah, probably. It was definitely oversaturation, and I think the same problem happened later on in Kiss's history. But you got to remember they were there in 96. They basically played every place in 96. And I know the Psycho Circus never made it over to the West Coast, but again, because they hit us so hard in 96, 97, we were like, ah. And then I guess the novelty had worn off in certain markets. But still, I
Yeah,
think
they didn't need to for the Psycho Circus. They had already started out, with Dodger Stadium.
Mhm.
I guess the 2000 tour proves that it would have been futile to even come out to Northern California by then. It was a one trick. You know, here's your stadium size audience, and that's enough for that tour.
Mm-hmm. No stadiums on this tour. There was Tiger Stadium on the reunion tour, and then Dodger Stadium on the Psycho Circus tour. But this tour, no stadiums. And they kept on pushing back the end of the tour. We never knew when it was actually going to end. Another interesting point before we get into the show. Another interesting point is I. It was in I think it was September. It was mid September where the Japanese tour was announced, and then like 4 days later it was canceled. So you could tell there were problems brewing in the band at that time as far as contract negotiations go. But we know later on that Peter Criss did not make the trip to Japan for the that leg of the farewell tour. So this is the Kiss farewell tour. So this is the best representation of this. So we're going to go over 3 versions of the show. We got the complete show, which is the bootleg that I was just talking about. We have the USA pay-per-view, which is called The Last Kiss. And then again, this was aired in Japan, and it was called Now That's What I Call Music from New York. And outstanding quality for the Japanese version. We're lucky that we have outstanding quality for the Last Kiss pay-per-view. That's because it was officially released on Kissology. But man, rewatching the actual pay-per-view from Japan, I was like, man, it even sounds better than the US version does, especially the
Everything's
bombs.
better about that Japanese version. It is absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
What are the technical details on that? Just out of curiosity.
As far as what? As far as like editing and stuff like that?
No, it's different. Well, it's different editing, but it's also different.
Or you're talking about
Uh,
like song selections in there.
no, it's 16:9, isn't it, versus 4:3?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And there's it's shorter, but there are different songs in the Japanese version than there are in the US version. The Japanese version does omit "Shock Me," which I think at this point was played out, but the Japanese version includes 2000 Man and Do You Love Me, which are absent from the Last Kiss pay per view. So if you hobble together the Last Kiss pay per view and the Japanese pay per view, you get an almost complete show. You're only missing just like a handful of songs at that point, but you're getting all the high points of the show. You're still, we're still missing an outstanding quality. We're still missing Lick It Up, Cold Gin, and Calling Dr. Love, which is
The
odd.
Japanese version changed the sequence as well, didn't it?
That's correct. The Japanese show moved. It definitely changed quite a bit of sequencing on there. It moved 2000 Man up way in the set, whereas 2000 Man was much later in the set. And the U.S. version moves Shock Me much later in the set, whereas Shock Me was earlier in the set too. So there are a lot of things that are moved around as far as sequencing for there. But again, you gotta track this version down. It is in the native widescreen, and we're suckers for booms. The pyrotechnics sound better on there. So that's my
Slightly enhanced.
slightly that was my go-to when I was after I had watched the shit out of the full version of the show. That was always my go-to, the Japanese version of the pay-per-view, because it was so good. It was so good. So
It's got a different character because it's got the hosts who
yep,
are having a conversation that obviously we can't understand as
we can. So
non-Japanese
somebody,
speakers. It's also got like a commercial inside in it. It's got a wrap up. It's really more of a domestic product, which gives it a completely different character with the resequencing to the external viewer. And maybe it's just illustrative of the TV culture or the broadcast culture there versus the American pay-per-view, which obviously is constructed for a different culture.
well, I think it's also important to note that the Japanese version of this concert aired in September of 2000. It predated the USA pay-per-view. And I truly believe that it was done that way because this was an advertisement for the upcoming Japanese tour that was announced shortly after. Shortly after this, I believe it aired September 8th or September 9th. And then I believe the original announcement for the Japanese farewell tour was September 15th. Somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I believe it was that quickly. I believe this was intended as a commercial for the upcoming Japanese tour. because they addressed Japan about coming to see them soon and all that stuff. So I believe this was intended as a commercial for, hey, Japan, here's what you're gonna get.
Yep.
Sorry
No, that
about
would have
people.
made sense. And one other minor version are those promo clips that I mentioned. Those have different edits. Firehouse with it has Firehouse with the flame sequence is a completely different edit, and yeah, you can actually see Gene walking across the stage to go get the torch, whereas they do cut scenes on the pay-per-view version. Do You Love Me endings in there as well, and then there's I think some other clips of Gene breathing fire, spewing blood, rock and roll all night, of course. So those are all worth checking out as well.
Yeah, I truly
27 years, over 75 million albums sold. The masked men who command an international army of fans. You want the best, you got the best. The hottest band in the world.
Everybody's gonna move their feet. Everybody's gonna leave their seat. You gotta lose your mind in Detroit, Rock City.
The only band to make history.
Shout it, shout it, shout it out loud.
It's your chance to see the original four in one of their final performances. Some legends never die. Kiss, The Last Kiss, Saturday, October 7th, only on pay-per-view. Call your cable or satellite company.
believe in. I'm not sure if the those promo clips widely circulate, but it was always my understanding that the promotional clips were like an early edit. Because as I mentioned, Tommy Thayer was editing this while he was on the road, so I'm assuming that he was just probably sending clips to promote it that maybe wasn't the final edit. But it is very interesting. It is very interesting to see. What I thought was interesting about the Last Kiss pay-per-view, that edit, is where Paul would be introing "Do You Love Me?" It's omitted, but then they go into that farewell tour promotional reel that when the farewell tour originally started, they were showing like this 10-minute history video, which I don't know about you, but the last thing I want to see when I go to a Kiss concert is a fucking video instead of the band. So I thought it didn't do a great job setting the mood. I really didn't. I thought it was boring. I thought this, I don't know. My excitement is not building by watching this video. So very early on in the tour, I believe not even maybe a month into the tour, I think April 29th was the first date where they omitted the video in the intro. And now the band was starting immediately, like Detroit Rock City was playing as the band was descending. No, excuse me. I'm sorry. The original intro is that all four guys of the band, they came down, and then they were dropped onto the stage, and then they started Detroit Rock City. April 29th is when they started Detroit Rock City. They descended during Detroit Rock City. I don't know when they stopped showing the film before the show versus when they incorporated clips from the film into Do You Love Me? Do you know that? I don't know when that actually happened.
No, sorry.
It was
No
early in the
clue, but
tour. It was early in the tour where they stopped the intro video, then they trimmed the intro video down to fit into Do You Love Me?
I disagree with you.
Do you?
I'll take that 10-minute video over Avatar reveals any day of the week.
Okay,
And you
what
know
else?
what? It honored all eras of history, something that a lot of fans have complained about with the End of the Road, in a more meaningful way. There were some token videos that did include former members during End of the Road. Let's be fair to Kiss. But I actually like the aesthetic of honoring the band's history in a meaningful manner. And again, it's all very opinion based. There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, yeah. Also, another point I just want to point out. Another thing I want to point out is when I first saw Kiss, December 31st, 1996, there was a 30-minute version of The Second Coming before the band went on. And I just remember going like, what's this video? And then years later, when I saw Paul McCartney, there was like a 30-minute video before he took the stage on his history. I'm like, what? Can we just, I don't want to come to a concert and watch TV. do that at home. But you are right. The video does do justice, and it does talk about every iteration of the band at that point. So the first time I got this video, the farewell tour promotional film is on here, so I was able to see that, and it was cool to see at the time, and it was cool that it was included inside the Last Kiss, as like a cool history of the band. I remember seeing clips of that when they did the opening night live, and they were showing, oh, this is what's happening right now, and blah blah blah. So but yeah, so there is a laundry list of differences between the Last Kiss pay per view and the now that's what I call Music from New York. So you as the viewer, you tell us which one you enjoyed and which one you liked better. But let's talk about the full show. Let's talk about the full show. Do you remember when you finally got the full show?
No, it would have been an audience bootleg. Video wise, not a clue. So again, I was collecting actively at that time. So as part of the trading circles that were going on back then, it was tapes were popping up after shows very soon.
Very quickly.
Throughout the whole reunion period was just a great time to be a fan again, and to be doing, if you were into it, to be doing the tape trading, whether it was videos. Videos were a little bit tougher. So again, being the audio guy, it was just so easy to do a trade, and here's the new tape, whether it was Vancouver in '97, whether it's the 2000 shows. It was someone was offering them up. DATs were being used to record stuff, so you were getting the whole thing in some cases. There were no more tape breaks on a lot of the shows. The mic quality went up at the time as well, so there was an improvement in it, and I think the band sounded better. The sonics and the sound for the venues was improved by that time as well. So people had learned a lot recording shows during Psycho Circus, the reunion tour. So it was the last great hurrah in many ways for being a tape collecting, live show consuming bootleg lover.
Which was me. I couldn't wait to get bootlegs of the show. And I was very fortunate that 2 shows at the time that I went to were pro shot. So I was very, very fortunate. And like I think I bought it from an old website called kissalive.com that used to sell a lot of tapes. I'll have to use the Wayback Machine to actually see if I can find that website again. But I got this. I mean, I was still in high school when I got this, and I was just so excited. I remember sending a money order to this guy, and then waiting. He sent the money order. He waited, and you got the tape. And
I don't think I ever did that shit. I don't think I ever paid. It was always trade or I'll wait, and trade with someone who did pay. That was just kind of my mentality. I was buying a lot of 45s. 7-inch singles were my thing back then. I was just coming to the tail end of that, but it was trade or nothing. I would buy radio shows. I would buy silver pressed boots, when the opportunity arose. I mean, I was in the States at this time, so it was a whole different mentality. Being back in the States meant that I could trade by mail easily, which was a lot less painful than doing it in England or Scotland. With all that international postage, it wasn't as bad as it's become.
I mean, check this out. Running time, 190 minutes. Because there was just so much. There was backstage footage on this, the complete show. I mean, like, I really got the bang for my buck when I got this show. I was so excited that, oh my God, the show that I went to, it was there. So,
the old days.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that I wasn't able to go to the second night. But, listen, 15-year-old Andrew, he was on a very, very tight budget. Very tight budget.
You got to one. I take it as a blessing, any show that I've been able to get to that I've actually gone through, because I don't like crowds. I don't like loud music. So getting to a show is a really, no, it's weird. I mean, I do not like the concert experience at all. I love seeing my friends, and that's the best part of it. But everything else is just torture, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse in the industry.
It has gotten pretty bad in the industry, but I don't know. I always, I was really, really fortunate that I got to one for each of the reunion era. So one reunion, one Psycho Circus, one farewell. And I remember begging to try and go to the actual the Trenton show, which was in September of 2000. And at the time, I was like, "Oh no, you already saw the show, and it's going to be on TV. It's the same shit." And I was like, "Man, if I just could have went to one more show back then, it would have been so cool." So that was a small arena too, the Sovereign Bank Arena in Trenton, New Jersey. Never made it there, but I know it was a smaller place than East Rutherford. So, but there's so many memories of this show. I think the only picture I took is as I was driving down the New Jersey Turnpike after the show. I took a picture of the stadium or the arena at night with the which said Continental Airlines Arena, and I was like, ah, so cool. I got my ticket stubs somewhere. You know, I showed the T-shirt. I think the only other thing I got was a tour book at the time. I think that was
God, that tour book was absolutely spectacular, errors and all,
it. Mm-hmm.
because they tried to print the tour dates to every show in it, and that left some of us giggling as complete nerds. But again, it was a tour that had great merch, great T-shirts,
Mm-hmm.
great tour book, and again, maybe it's just because we're 23 years older now and we've been through the end of the road and everything that's kind of been negative about that. But it was really fun.
I have one final question for you before we start into the meat and potatoes of the show, like we always do. Um, why wasn't this Kiss Alive 4?
It should have been. I mean, I've got the full soundboard.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Let's talk about this now. Everything that Alive for the Millennium Concert isn't, this show is.
Is.
This show has energy. This show has quality performance. Yeah, it's not 1977. Get over that, people. But for the last hurrah of the originals lineup, when you watch it and you see them playing, I'm going to start going into Kiss song, Great Expectations. When you watch them playing the guitars, when you watch him banging his drums and you hear it, and then you go and listen to Alive 4 and the tempo dies. That show is unlistenable, turgid
Unlistenable.
garbage.
Unlistenable.
Its mix is horrendous. Everything about it is horrendous. And yet, this is night and day. I dug out those CDs because after watching the videos, I'm like, I'm sure I've got the full soundboard. And sure enough, through trade, nothing special, nothing arcane, no back deal, nothing dirty to get upset about. It's out there. Listening to it is just, it gave me a feeling that I've been missing for a long time because, like End of the Road, it's saying goodbye to the group. And back then, listening to this, it's a better show and a better memory of
Mm-hmm.
the end of Kiss for me now because Paul sounds like Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul is the voice of Kiss. Paul is the person you and I both joked about some of his screeching and yodeling during the shows. Hey, people, are we having fun yet? New Jersey, let me hear you. If I was doing shots of JD while hearing him talk about let me hear you, I wouldn't make it all the way through the show. But
No.
wow, what
Die.
a difference 23 years made. And I'll just say it. Press pause on this. Go listen to it.
You mentioned the soundboards. I'm assuming you're mentioning the radio shows, correct?
No, the soundboard,
Which,
because the radio shows are not the complete show.
yes, I was going to mention that. There's two
It
different.
is the full show in soundboard quality.
There's two different radio shows, and I think there's actually only one. Here's why I'm going to say it that way. There's definitely one radio show, which is its own thing, but I noticed that radio show number 2 is the exact same as The Last Kiss. Is radio show number 2 just a rip of The Last Kiss? I think it might be.
Yeah, it could well be. Yeah.
So I think it might be. There was a radio show, and I'm not even sure where this would have aired at the time.
It was Westwood 1.
What? Yeah. So, but yeah. So I think radio show number 2 might be The Last Kiss. I'll have to look into that. But there was definitely a radio show on this, and yeah, there's so much more energy in this performance. And yes, there are overdubs on this, but there's overdubs on everything that's officially released. So, but I recall listening to Alive 4, whatever you want to call it, the Millennium Concert. But can anybody tell me why the version of Godathon of the Millennium Concert is the same version that they lip sync to in WCW? They might have an answer for that. This is just it's nonsense. It's just nonsense. A huge misexperience. This should have been released as its own thing. Furthermore, the full show should have been put on Kissology Volume 3, not just the pay-per-view.
Yeah, and they can make up for that by making this a full off the soundboard release if it ever gets going again.
Yeah.
I'd take that. Just like 2001 Tokyo, I would take a pristine, fully and properly mastered version of this show again in audio, because that seems to be easier than them doing a video.
Yeah, it seems so. The biggest visual band only has one concert ever released in high definition officially. So sad. But yeah, I would take this on an off the soundboard. I mean, the set list is good. It does include my least favorite song, "Let Me Go Rock and Roll," but I'll give them a pass for that. But they actually really did try to mix it up on this one, my opinion, especially including those 380 songs at the time the original band hadn't played. So I'll hand it to Kiss. I mean, they tried to do something different for the farewell tour to celebrate the whole history of the band. They tried.
They tried, but let's say one thing with complete honesty about those three songs. They are the easiest by guitar to play without any effort whatsoever. Both rhythm guitar is absolutely freaking easy on all of them. The guitar solos, there's 7 notes in I Love It Loud. Lick It Up, come on. Heaven's on Fire. So while it is really nice that they are playing them, there's no stretch of the amount of effort that went into being able to play them with that lineup. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah, but look at the meatheads that were in the lineup at the time. There's a really great one cam. I think it's from a news station from Orlando, 2000, the farewell tour, and during the drum breakdown before the guitar solo, Peter's doing the drum breakdown. Ace is still playing that like he forgot where it was in the song and just kept playing the song. So, and it was like that, he was not playing great at some of these shows. Some of the shows were okay. Some of the bad nights were horrible. It was like the Dynasty tour all over again sometimes. And Peter had just had surgery, carpal tunnel surgery on both of his hands at the time too. So there was no drum solo on this tour at all. There was a little bit of a little solo in 100,000 Years, but nothing like the normal drum solo we were used to in the Reunion Psycho Circus tour. So yeah, you're right. The songs were the easiest of the 80s songs, but they tried to do something different.
They were there. Hey, I'm not complaining. They were there. They played stuff from the 80s, original members of the group playing Vinnie Vincent, Mark St. John stuff.
Yeah, because Heavens and Fire is Mark St. John. Is he the one that played Bruce only played on one track on that record, right? He didn't play on
a little bit on 2.
Yeah.
I think Lonely is the Hunter and While the City, I don't remember.
Those songs are just so horrible. So horrible.
And how much of Heaven's on Fire is really Mark anyway, for that matter.
Yeah,
so.
A lot of it could be just Paul acting like Mark. So
yeah.
All right, well let's get into the show. We mentioned earlier that there was some really cool backstage footage shot by our very own Tommy Thayer. So it's cool to kind of see the band just milling around backstage. And what do you notice about this backstage footage, if anything?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't notice nothing about nothing. Tell me.
Well, the band's not talking to each other. They're just sitting there in silence. It's not even like there's no joking around. Like Ace's nails are getting dried. These guys are not having fun being together. They're just not. And you can tell that they're just sitting there staring at the wall. So
5 years was optimistic.
Yeah.
I think we're lucky that they managed to even get to 5 years.
Yeah. 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 So then the show starts with Detroit Rock City, which is probably the ultimate opener next to I Stole Your Love, which I would have accepted that on this tour.
Yeah, what a great start it is. I'm going to say this as well, and this is kind of another dig at the Alive 4. Alive 4, that original cover versus the descending platform was just never properly realized as Kiss art.
Mm-hmm.
What an album cover that opening sequence was. And you know what? They do such a great job filming this. And this comes down to Tommy's editing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Good angles, good audience inserts. But even then, in 2000, you see too many stiffs in the audience. This is a Kiss concert. And I had those people around me in at the end of the road. And it's like, why are you here, rich person?
Yeah, but
You know,
the best part about those, no cell phones in 2000.
I know. What again? But they're just standing there like they're being propped up with a broom up their backside. Um, initially I don't like the drum sound at the beginning of the show. There's something on the audio on the video that I was listening to that doesn't sound great, but it does improve. But the one thing that bugs me during Detroit Rock City is that goddamn stupid Prowler graphic.
I don't mind. I don't mind the Prowler graphic because they were, the Plymouth Prowler was the thing they gave away in '98, so I didn't mind that. I was like, oh, cool. The band is incorporating some animations on there, so I thought that was kind of cool. I prefer that to the engine animations on the End of the Road tour. I'm like, whose engine is that? Why are we like, what's
Yeah.
going on? At least the animation here animates the song to show the car crash. So I thought that was like, all right, cool. It didn't really bother me. What bothered me was the animation later on. We'll talk about that later on. That animation fucking sucked. But then we go right into Deuce, and I always really love Detroit Rock City into Deuce. It's probably my favorite 1-2 punch. I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I'm officially happy the moment I've been deuced. It's a good rendition of the song. But I don't think the camera work captures the energy that they're performing with, because they come out hot.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely got a lot of energy going, a lot of adrenaline for this, and maybe it is because it was the only thing they were going to get close to a home show
That's
during
right.
the tour.
That's right.
But this again, my notes for this are: it isn't turgid compared with the December '99 show, and it's far, far better for my taste. And one good part of the videography there is the choreograph section.
Mm-hmm.
They nail framing that for my taste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I prefer Deuce second over anything else. I don't really like the Detroit shout, and I know they tried that at the beginning of this tour. Then obviously they ended up doing its thing on the End of the Road. I just don't like Detroit shout, but I do. We get after Deuce, we get the first intro of Paul's. That's goes on just a little bit
New
too long.
Jersey
Yeah, it goes on a
people.
little too long for my taste. But he just goes on and 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 on. Then we finally get to shout it out loud. And what I noticed most about this, and I guess maybe it's just the mix on the full show video that I watched so many times, Ace's mic is so loud.
Yeah, I love it.
He's so loud, and he's just shout it, shout it, shout it out loud. Like I'm like, whoa, 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 so much Ace, too much.
Turn him down.
Yeah,
Too much Ace.
too much Ace. Return of Everybody Else is just not good. It's not good, but solid performance, in my opinion.
Yeah, Peter smiling behind that drum kit at the beginning.
Mhm.
Oh, that just hits me. There's good pyro, but I love the triple split screen. And I'm talking a lot about the video.
Mhm.
You're just talking about the audio. I'm now talking about video. When Ace does his line, and you've got the three
Mhm.
band members singing up on the screen, I think that's an awesome touch. And
Mhm.
again, it shows that this is being edited by a Kiss fan.
Mhm.
And also then it goes
or by
shot for the pyro.
yeah, or it was shot by someone or edited by someone who watched the Shout It Out Loud video, because that's where you got the first Shout It Out Loud was 4 splits, but that's where you got that first taste of that was then. But no,
Yeah, then you get a good element presented visually,
yeah,
and you know that as a
yeah,
director.
yeah. Then we move on to the first low point of the show for me. I just never liked I Love It Loud live, and I don't like the neutered version on drums by our Catman. It's just I just never liked this song live, and it was the one I was like, okay, cool, it's here, I guess. I just for me, it's always a skip, live.
Yeah, I like that Peter was willing to do it, but he's a different drummer than Eric.
Mhm.
And while Eric was able to do his stuff, Peter is the Catman and doesn't need to. I like that the song is at least here,
Mm-hmm.
and that's I don't have much more for it. It's over very quickly.
Yeah, people. Oh, I don't know why I'm yawning. I'm not even tired. Um, People don't realize that this was a big deal at the time because when they came back in '96, they really said they weren't going to do anything past 1979, and they really stuck to that for those first two tours. Aside from doing the new material of Psycho Circus that they worked on together, so this was a big deal because you had the original lineup not playing original lineup songs. So I mean, I was excited at the time, but here 23 years later, I'm not excited. Next up is Shock Me. I like Shock Me early in the set like this, and I like Shock Me with no guitar solo. So I thought this was cool. I was really happy with how it's shot. You get those shots from the side of the stage where Gene is singing in that microphone on the left side of the stage. So you get that nice crane shots in there, and I thought it was I thought it was really cool. I love this song in this spot.
Bonus points for capturing Ace's little stutter
Oh
step
yeah,
there.
yeah.
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 Yeah. No, that's really nice. And that's probably a good reason to have it early on when he's, as fresh as he's gonna be.
That's right.
Good rocket sequences as well on this. And again, the vocals are just a bit too hot.
And I noticed that and because you get so really good close up of him during this time, it almost feels like his makeup is elongated here a little bit because like his face was like extra droopy that day. There's something that I didn't mention that I want to go back to the opening track. And I don't know if I'm just seeing things at this point in time, but right before the guitar solo, it looks like Paul points. He gets Ace's attention and points to the center of the stage, like, "Hey, we had to go right there." So go back and rewatch that. That's what it seems like he's doing to me. Like he's ordering Ace to get to the center of the stage because maybe Ace was just, yeah, fucking, I'm in Gentle on the stage. I don't know what's going on. So he was ordering him to get to the center stage. Okay, so next up we got Firehouse, which we've talked about that there are several different edits of Firehouse on here. We have the edit that was in the pay-per-view, and then the edit that was in now that's what I call music, and then we have the edit that was done for the promotional clips. But this is the full show version where it's actually in widescreen. I thought there was a little too much time spent on Peter Criss shooting him on this song, and I hate to be hard on him. I just don't want to really see him during this song. My opinion, there's just a little too much Peter Criss for me.
Yeah. No. Peter thrashing his cymbals at the end is fantastic. The crew clearly had very good cue sheets for this show, which clearly, again, is down to Tommy. The song has swagger and the video matches, but those dumb graphics in the background, they haven't aged well for my taste. The siren sequence and flame is great. The red hue of the audience from the lighting is just absolutely spectacular for the song. And then sadly after the song you get the mini documentary.
Well, yeah, on the pay-per-view you get the mini documentary. On the
Yeah,
full show you get the real McCoy where it goes into Do You Love Me?
that's cool. The good transition as well.
Yes. Yes. I was just going through like because I watched so many different versions of this show that I'm just going through like some of my clips here as we're talking about these. And there's so much more to talk about. When we get to the end of the show. So, Do You Love Me? I almost thought about making a version of this song where I was able to recreate what was going on the background screens because again, by the time I saw the show, the history. This was the only time you had historical videos playing while the band was on. Was during Do You Love Me? So I wanted to like micro analyze the clips that were playing behind them. I was more focused on looking at the screen, like what clip is that from? Oh wait, that clip is from Phantom. That just I was more interested in that than I was at them playing the song "Do You Love Me." But I think it's a great performance of the song.
Yeah, I love the use of the archival footage
Mhm.
in conjunction with the wide angles.
Mhm.
It's really visually appealing. It's a great song as well.
Mhm.
Always enjoy that one.
Yeah, we talked about that during our Tiger Stadium video where this song came back, and it was a big deal when it came back because it was virtually ignored throughout the late '70s and all throughout the '80s. So it was good to hear this song come back. So next up is "Calling Doctor Love." This song to me, and even when I was there, it really dawned on me how diminished Peter's drum chops had become while playing the song. Because if you listen to it here versus how it was played in the reunion tour, you could tell that our Catman was a little tired at this point. Rightfully so. He was older than the rest of the guys in the band.
Yeah, I'm not noticing those things. I'm noticing a decent performance out of all of them. I'm finding the drums sound much. Psycho Circus, I had a problem with the drums. They sounded weak.
Yeah, they sounded tinny almost.
Yeah, and here they don't. Here they're much more appealing sonically. So whatever they're doing, technically is working for my taste.
Yeah. Yeah. Following Calling Dr. Love, we have the next '80s song, which is Heaven's on Fire. And again, the pyro cues on this one were so cool. Um, my brother went with me to this show, and I remember going, they're doing the fire on, it's coming on instead of the word fire because there's been Heaven's on Fire. I was like, the pyro cues, it's like a hair early. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, just watch it. It's early. So, but I think they captured it very well on this video. Very, very well.
They do, but it's hard to watch the originals doing this song as much as it's important for, fans like me who, discovered the group in the 1980s. It sounds and looks good, but those flames don't match the treatment of the song that I guess are fresh in the memory from the end of the road, because oh boy, did they go over the top
Oh my
in
god.
the last 5 years when doing Heaven's on Fire. But, come on, it's like deja vu all over again. Heaven's on Fire. They're at the end both times. Um, and again, my only other note was it's just funny how the 80s songs they picked were so simple in terms of guitars.
Well, yeah, it was simple because it had to be simple because it was um, Ace and Peter playing these songs. They had to choose. You weren't going to get Creatures of the Night from Ace Frehley and Peter Criss in the year 2000. You weren't going
No,
to
I
get
was watching Ace play that solo in Heaven's on Fire, and he's looking down, and I'm like, come on, man, that's easy. I can play it.
Yeah, you weren't going to get Unholy from Peter Criss and Ace Frehley. Unfortunately, as much as you wanted to, you weren't getting that. So,
Sorry, you didn't get it very well from Tommy either. Sorry, Tommy.
well, I mean, when Kiss opened it with Creatures of the Night in 2004, Tommy just butchered that. He totally just butchered that the first night they did it. Um, so yeah, I mean, keep that to Bruce and Vinny. Um, now we're gonna get to my favorite song, "Let Me Go Rock and Roll." This song seems to go on forever, and the fact that it was not only included in the full show, but it was included in both versions of the pay-per-view. I had to watch this song so many times. Uber pass on this song. Uber pass. I can't get into it. I can't.
I do. I love the visuals on the opening. Paul's, striking the intro, Gene flapping his bat wings on the dim stage. It's a very striking stage in terms of the lighting and the camera work at the beginning. And I think it's a steamroller visually and sonically, clapping nicely and lots of camera on Ace during his guitar work. So it works for me. But then again, I love the song.
Yeah, I just and I'm like, ugh, this song again. Just ugh, ugh. All right, so now we come to my absolute least favorite part of the show, which is 2000 Man. And this is what I was talking about before. Those lame graphics that were on the screen. Okay, so you can't really appreciate these graphics unless you watch. There's another video from Pine Knob in 2000, September 2000. And I guess this was shot for VH1 fan clubs. You could circulate, it's online right now. But because it was a screen feed of this, you're seeing what's on the screen. So what do I see? I see the entire 2000 Man song told by those lame Kiss Immortals, which was a web cartoon in 1999. So basically, this is the first appearance of the Kiss avatars. And that's pretty much what they look like, is these damn Kiss Immortals. this shitty web animation from the year 1999. And I just remember that being on the screen going, man, it was lame then. It's much more lame now, man. So lame. So lame.
Yeah, they didn't really improve much in 23 years either.
Mm-mm.
You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, they've already done the freaking avatars badly once with these skeletons. But I actually like the Earth graphic, even though the rest are dumb.
Okay, so
And I love the
the
song.
Earth graphic, that was from the Psycho Circus video, where like the guitar is launching from Earth. So I was like, okay, that was kind of cool. That was kind of
Mhm.
cool. I think the solo goes on too long, my opinion. I think he could easily trim a minute or two from that solo and have it still be just as powerful.
Yeah, this one's not the best performance. I'll give you that. You know, and on the Japanese version, here's where you get the rocket sequence, I think.
Yes, that's correct.
Can't remember which is which. And then it's followed by an interview clip there with Gene and Paul only talking.
Thank God. Thank God it's just Gene and Paul. um, so then we got Psycho Circus, which I liked the song back then. I was definitely not happy hearing it over and over again in the year 2004, because 2004 Psycho Circus was supposed to be the rotating song, and it didn't rotate very much. But this is a good performance here of this song. I really, really enjoyed this track, and the camera work on this one again, just fantastic. And just like the stage, I don't know, like the purples and the light, I loved everything about this song. I really, really did, and I thought it was a great performance on the farewell tour.
I like the Gene and Ace shots during this song
Mhm.
visually. You know, that's great, but it's a terrible placement for Psycho
You think
Circus.
so?
You know, 40 minutes in and welcome to the show.
Okay, yeah, I
Doesn't make any sense in terms of context. It
okay.
needs to be earlier in the set order to make any sense. You know, welcome to the show.
I mean, it was
Ah,
later on in the set on the end of the road tour, but it did. I don't think
I
they
got
wanted.
chopped in half.
Well, yeah, on one of the many, many legs of this on the end of the road tour. But I don't think that I don't think I don't think it would have worked as an opening track on the farewell tour, because that's not
No, not suggesting that.
they weren't selling this record anymore. I guess, honestly, they probably could have swapped it with Shout Out Loud, maybe, but I don't know. I never really thought about it that way. I thought that they were welcoming you back to the show after that 9-minute Ace Frehley guitar solo.
Okay,
So
so
that's
after your pee break, welcome back to the show.
yeah. And I wasn't going to the bathroom just yet. And yes, the bathroom. I wasn't going to the bathroom just yet. So now we have the third and final 1980s song, "Lick It Up." Listen, it was great to hear this song without the "Won't Get Fooled Again" thing in there, and it was great not to hear that long middle part where the "I want you, I need you." It was great to not hear that. So yeah, I thought this was a fine version of there, and again, the easiest of the three songs to play musically, especially on the drums. Um, but Paul does a great performance on this one, and this was a welcomed addition back to the set list, my opinion.
I agree. And I'm triggered by what they've done to it in recent years
It's
or
just
recent decades.
yeah,
In the decades since this, it's really become an unpleasant part of the show for me. While early on, I did enjoy the "Won't Get Fooled Again" and kind of the whole production that it became, but
Mhm.
it got overdone, overcooked,
Way
overrepeated, and it just became a song during the set where you're like, you could have done 3 frickin' songs instead of the
mhm,
one.
mhm.
Um, I'm bored. So, but then again, not as many people go to the amount of shows that diehards do. So,
That's very
again, it's
true.
not for us.
That's very true. God of Thunder. This is the first time that they were including additional production elements into God of Thunder, as far as like the lightning and the storm sounds. None of that was they never did any of that on the reunion of the Psycho Circus tour. So this is the first time that they were like putting like graphics of the lightning storm and thunderstorm on the screen, and you kind of heard that. I thought that was very, very cool. The for whatever reason, why they didn't include the Hunchback of Notre Dame bell on this tour is beyond me. I think,
Or the light,
yeah, or
the
the light
spotlight.
or anything. That stuff was so easy and so cool. This was the last time I really thought Gene looked evil during the Bloodstone. The amount of blood that he spits and the amount that he gets all over himself. This was like one of the last times. I mean, you watch how he did it on the end of the road tour. Like he's like, and there's like a little bit that comes down, but this is like his chest is covered and he's a mess. And I felt like this was the last time where I was like, yeah, he's evil. He looked evil. So great performance and kudos to no drum solo being in the middle of this goddamn song. I love that.
Yes, the definitive blood sequence for the reunion
Mm-hmm.
in many ways,
Mm-hmm.
visually.
Mm-hmm.
The only part I'll criticize is the flying sequence. They didn't get the cameras right for that. That just does not work. But then again, a bit spoiled by how it's been done over recent years. So
Yeah.
easy to go back and criticize it. But at the time, I'm sure it was perfectly fine in person. But watching the video, I'm like, it's not so good.
Yeah, I think the only time they captured this really well visually was on the symphony. I don't think it was.
I don't watch it.
It's okay here and there. It was my favorite concert when that came out because it was new and it was my Kiss. So now, Cold Gin. This is way too late in the set for Cold Gin. I think that this song it carries on too long. I really miss the Cold Gin Strutter from 1980. I get that they weren't going to play their last tour without playing Cold Gin, but too late in the set for me. Way too late in the set for me.
Yeah, this song did so little for me that I didn't write anything down about it.
Yeah. No.
Again, it's another one that's been kind of overdone in recent years, so I still am a bit triggered by that experience.
We're not going to get triggered from this song. So the next
No
up,
performance.
yeah, next up, 100,000 Years. I do think the middle section goes on a little too long with Paul's vocal acrobatics on this one, and then the mini drum solo. It just really shows you how far the mighty had fallen. I thought Peter did a fine job in the reunion tour, and then we had this little mini drum solo here. I was like, sounds like a kid testing out his drums at Guitar Center. So, but I was happy that there was a small drum solo. I didn't want a long ass drum solo. But I thought I think the production looks really good. The flames finally look good on this. The flames, going back to our Tiger Stadium chat, the flames just really didn't do a whole lot for me from Tiger Stadium or on the reunion tour. But these are big kick ass flames again. So I was happy to see that. And I didn't realize how cool those little added effects were on the end of the road tour with Gene and Tommy going up on the platforms during that. I kind of I was like, oh, that would have been cool for them to do here. But this was one of those songs that overstayed its welcome on the reunion era.
Yeah, without a doubt. But this is one of the high points on, the video for me. I think it's an absolutely fantastic version of the song with great camera angles. Again, the cuts, the graphic elements, everything comes together here. I think Peter's smart. I think Peter's doing enough to get through the shows and the tour without overdoing it. He's doing what he has to for the condition of his arms, and I think being smart about it. Again, I'm not spotting kind of the criticisms that you are because I'm just enjoying it for what it is. And I think it sounds much better than a lot of the shows from throughout the other tours post reunion. Just the wear and tear, age catches up with you
No, it does.
very rapidly and you don't see it, but you sure as hell feel it. And, now I'm at that age, I recognize it daily, actually.
I actually would have preferred no drum solo at all and have him just, kick ass on playing songs. It was one of those things I distinctly remember all of us clapping our hands and just going like trying to like get back on the beat with him because he wasn't as confident as he was maybe in the reunion tour. But
They'd had 4 years of being criticized probably
that's just me being
by
a musician, you know?
yeah.
So, but anyway, so we move on to Love Gun. The flying trick had not overstayed its welcome by this point because it was only on the Psycho Circus tour, and then here everybody finally got to see it. So the Psycho Circus tour didn't hit all markets, and when he started doing this in the reunion tour, it was only on the Lost Cities tour. So finally, we're gonna get to see, you know, this flying stunt, and I thought it was still really cool for him to do it. Um, you know, thank God, you know, the sound meter worked on this one.
Oh, Jesus. That is just Sonic cheese. That really dates it. You know, I agree with you completely about the flying shtick. You know, back then it was fresh, it
Uh-huh.
was new. You were seeing it, you know, you'd maybe gone to a couple of shows, or maybe it was your first, you know, for Psycho Circus, not covering much of the country. So it would have been new to most people, or a new angle, even for repeat customers like me. So it was still very cool. And again, it's Paul's vocals.
Mhm.
He is still there, even though there were definitely cracks in '96. Let's not be wrong, because he worked his instrument very hard for the entertainment of the audience for many years. But he is still powerful
Still.
here.
And again, as I mentioned before, this was the first tour after Phantom of the Opera, and, it shows. It shows that he still had the power. Next up, there's no more, you know, meandering on the guitar for Black Diamond. We now have "I Still Love You" of Paul doing that, which I thought was so cool. To me, this was the coolest part of the show, seeing Paul do "I Still Love You" um, solo on the stage. And did it have a deeper meaning because he was going through a divorce from Pamela at this time? Did it have deeper meaning for him to play the song? But I thought it was so cool, and this is one of my favorite parts of the show. Seeing "I Still Love You" like that, so cool.
Yeah, it's another really nice touch that's been put into a Kiss show, whatever the reasons. Again, it's a nod to a different era of the band, to the music. It's something for the fans who love the catalog to appreciate. And even briefly, I'm really glad it's there.
Yeah, yeah, still so cool. I much prefer that than to like a solo of him covering his eyes, pointing to different sides of I much prefer "I Still Love You" to that. Um,
Yeah.
Great performance of Black Diamond, and it's the first lead vocal from Peter throughout the entire night. Um, I did miss. I mean, only the drums go up here. There's no other platforms that are raising there, so I did miss those. What I do appreciate being back is the original choreography is back during the end solo, because on the reunion tour, obviously they were going out on the cherry pickers during that, so that the original choreography was put in the middle solo, which I thought was which is kind of odd. So I do appreciate that the original choreography was back. I understand Ace didn't get on his knees, but that's okay. But I thought it was a good performance, and I thought it was cool that the cat faces were back because they were absent on the Psycho Circus tour.
Yeah, I have one word for Black Diamond as a performance, visually and musically: powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good reason for Peter. Again, if his arms were still giving him problem, he maintained energy so that it could be a powerful show still at
Hmm.
this stage in the set. So I will take, taking it down to 85% or whatever it is. I don't care,
Hmm.
because it's at least consistent throughout, and the end product, again consistent. So great song. I mean, I enjoyed this. Again, first album,
Um,
and then it's your bathroom.
Here's my other. So this is my favorite part of the show. Um, Not Peter's performance. I mean, Peter does say that he just moved to New Jersey at this point in time, which, man, had I known that this guy was like, he lived 20 minutes away from me, I would have been there every day. I did get to go to his house. So I was actually in his basement. And so that was very cool for me as a fan. Anyway, that being said, my favorite part of the show is on that original VHS episode that I showed. There's all that backstage footage, and there's Beth from underneath the stage. So it's all the guys watching Peter sing Beth. And apparently there were some microphone issues where the microphone started going out during Beth, and he's singing, and you get like every other word, and Gene is watching, and Gene goes, "Oh fuck," because they knew that Peter was going to be furious. So, so the song ends. Peter comes onto the stage. He's motherfucking like, "Ah, the only fucking song I sing, fucking," and they're all trying to calm him down. And they go on stage to bow. So that was fun to watch. That was really fun to watch.
Yeah, I can't imagine actually. That's his song. That's his moment. That's his new home. Close to his old home. A lot of friends and family would have been in that audience. Don't fuck up Peter's Beth moment,
Peter's Beth.
people. You make sure that moment works because Gene's right. Oh fuck.
There's
I think it's a glorious rendition. Actually, it really makes me sad that was the final Beth.
well, I mean, he did on the Aerosmith tour, but you're right. It's basically the final Beth.
Yeah, the final originals.
Okay, the final originals. Okay.
Beth
Um,
moment, because
there's
world
the
domination was not.
there's a great, and I believe this is an in-ear monitor recording from Tokyo 2003, where like the same issue happens where the microphone starts going out for Beth, and you hear like the text talking through this. Is how it's got to be an in-ear recording. And during the 2003 tour, that was the full version of Beth with the longer solo, like they did in the symphony. So during the solo, like Peter's passing out the roses or whatever, and you hear one of the texts go, "Ah, God help me," because he knew he was going to get it from Peter, and that's like that is why I love Kiss bootlegs, because you hear little nuggets like that. That yeah, I've heard Beth 500 times in my life, but then to hear a little nugget like that, it like I laugh every single time where he's like, "Ah, God help me," because he knew he was about to get it from Peter. So
Well, those little nuggets are everywhere. I mean, think about that little bit of the text talking. What was it, hundred
oh, no,
thousand
yours. You're right.
years?
I forgot to mention that. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, so that comes through on the soundboard. You can hear them, hey, 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 like they're doing a mic check. So where's that in the set?
That's
Yeah,
right
they
before
should
Love
probably
Gun.
check it.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably checking Paul's mic. Maybe they should have done that for Peter.
Yeah, or maybe it's the same mic, and as he was like throwing it around, that's what did it. So, and then we finish up the show with Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day. This was the very first time where there was a lot of fucking confetti throughout that song. Because if you watch the reunion tour, there's just not a ton of confetti, but this time there was a ton of confetti, a ton. I almost wonder if they would like vacuum it up and then reuse it the next night. Like,
God, put it through the washer to get the beer and human juices off it.
oh man, I have bags and bags and bags. I still have confetti from this show. I have it in a little lunch bag. So the day we post this episode, I'll post it on my Facebook of the bag of confetti I have, because I had I wasn't smart enough at the time yet to do my little tour book trick where I catch the confetti in the tour book. I wasn't smart to do this. So I was like catching it in my hand and shoving it in my pocket, catching it in my hand, shoving it in my pocket. So I just wanted, it's a little memento of the show. It really, really is.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm a complete loser. I've got a bag of confetti from every single show on the End of the Road tour that I attended.
Me too.
And at the Madison Square Garden show on the final night, I had friends who were up in seats that wouldn't have any access to any of the confetti.
Mhm.
They're like, "Can you get some confetti?" I'm like, "Sure." So I had an extra bag with me. I'm actually grabbing handfuls of confetti before I go out the doors.
I didn't get any
You know,
confetti. I didn't get any confetti in December, but as I was walking out, I saw someone with one of those gold balloons, and I was like, $20 for that balloon. And he was like, "Sure, I'll go here." So I bought one of the balloons for $20. I have a balloon
yeah,
from,
I walked out with balloons and gave them away. It
yeah,
was
not to me.
I was like, I can't deal with this shit. I had enough popped ones and streamers as well from that show.
But do you know what I got at the last show at the Madison Square Garden?
A golden ticket.
Golden ticket. That's right. I got one of those golden tickets.
I did get one at the show. I did get one at the airport, thanks to a very kind
There you
fellow
go.
fan. But that was one of the most amazing things. How that thing all blew up, but how I bitched about it, and a fan reached out, and then the fan saw me at the airport. We're at the same gate on the same flight,
Mhm.
and came over and gave that to me. That just absolutely blew my mind how decent a lot of people are.
It's because you run Kissy Leaks. That's why he did it. He was like, Julian Gill, Kissy Leaks. Here you go. So that's how we knew. So
Yeah. I know some other fans who got taken care of by fellow fans as
good.
well,
It's good.
rather than, the whole eBay thing.
Oh my God, it's terrible. It's terrible. But
So back to Rock and Roll All Night.
final thoughts on this show. Final thoughts.
Well, I want to talk about Rock and Roll All
Okay,
Night
let's talk
first.
about rock and roll. As I said, let's talk about rock and roll night. About this show. So my takeaway is, wow, look at all the confetti.
Mine was, wow, look at Ace's solo sparkler.
Oh yeah, that's
beautifully
right.
captured and
Right.
framed. And right up to this point, again, you can tell that it's a Kiss fan Tommy, thank God for Tommy.
Mhm. Tommy Kiss fan.
Because again, he captured the energy of the audience in the rock and roll anthem. But I'm so sick to death of hearing Jersey.
I'll never get sick of that. But yeah, it was. I don't. Yeah, I'll never ever get sick of hearing that because hey man, that's my home. I was there. I never get sick
Yeah,
of
it's your home, not mine. I don't want to hear Jersey.
that.
The only time I ever think about Jersey is when I'm watching, police
Sopranos.
shows or something.
Sopranos, Cops, Live PD.
Cops, ankle monitors. I'll just shut up now. Actually, I don't want to offend anyone in New Jersey. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm from New Jersey. It's okay. All right. So now, final thoughts on this show.
My final thoughts are this. This is the farewell tour. This is real Kiss. And I say that with no disrespect to anyone else who's ever been in the group. This is the end of the originals lineup, something that, I'm surprised ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
This is also a visually fantastic document of that stage. The set hits all, I haven't bitched about what's not there.
Mm-hmm.
What could have been. I haven't talked about they could have done this instead of that. It's a great representation of the catalog. It honors the other members of the group, the history. But it doesn't hold a candle visually to End of the Road. Was all of that on steroids visually, much to the detriment of honoring former members and, other issues. It's a great thing. I strongly recommend. I really enjoyed revisiting every single version of this show that I did, and I'm going to continue doing so because it's been that much fun for me to really just dig into it and focus on it.
Yeah, I love this era. This brought back a lot of memories, a lot of memories, because again, we thought it was the end, and for me, being a 15-year-old kid and saying farewell to my favorite band, I thought it was cool as hell. I really did. And to be able to watch that moment in time over and over and over again, and to know that, man, little Andrew is there that night. I always really enjoyed putting that in and just letting it take me back. I always really enjoy that. And a bonus to have all that backstage footage from before and after the show, so that way you could be there and you could enjoy the show as well. So again, seek out your favorite version of the show. There's the complete version, which unfortunately isn't in outstanding quality. There's The Last Kiss, which is the US pay-per-view. Then there's Now That's What I Call Music from New York, which is the pay-per-view from Japan. So all three versions. Tell us what version is your favorite, and then we'll catch you again on the Inner Sanctum.
I'm Jeff Gonzer, and this week the Superstar Concert Series drafts you into the Kiss Army. It's the army that rock and rolls all night and parties every day. So don't be AWOL and lock on to Kiss. This week on Westwood One Superstar Concert Series.